It's not the plane, it's the pilot. You'd go after him if I wasn't here.
But you are here.
Come on, Mav. Don't think. Just do.
Haven't done this very often, but I'm gonna add 15 cents for sinning this masterpiece.
Reading. Also, not just reading, but the same reading as the last movie, which is a pretty good indicator of how much this movie wants you to remember that movie while watching this movie. Sequels, am I right? Also, I wouldn't be me if I didn't go back and check that they were, in fact, making me reread the same text, and while doing so, I spotted that in 1986, they used insure, and in Maverick, they changed it to ensure. Upon further research, insure isn't necessarily wrong, but ensure certainly fits the context better, so I understand the change. But guess what I had to do to figure that out? More f***ing reading.
Cool, 3 cents on the opening text. It's still stupid because you still have subtitles on these videos, but also it's not the exact same text. You'll notice that the second movie includes women right here, which wasn't there the first time. I'm honestly surprised you didn't notice that, considering your political point of view.
Now that's what we came here for. Don't be shy. Show me those ailerons, baby. Woo! Look at those vertical stabilizers. They just go on for days.
Well, this sounds like one of those sins that only exists because this movie is really good and you can't find anything actually wrong with it.
We'd be in the danger zone if we played the song, but it feels like someone thought waiting 30 years for a sequel would make recycling the original's Kenny Logginsing to a backdrop of plain porn okay. It does not.
How is it not okay? Is it because it calls back to the first movie? If so, I still don't see the issue with that.
Maverick decides to dominate this chair with a discount Riker maneuver instead of sitting down like a normal human being.
Arbitrary TV reference.
Then the director said, why don't you use this wrench at an uncomfortable angle instead of getting a stepladder? It'll make you look more like Tom Cruise.
Hey, it still works, right?
I feel like this photography of evidence wants to remind me of something important from the first movie, but it just seems to be ducking out of my grasp.
Ah, yes, let's send the movie for giving us reminders of a movie that came out over 30 years ago.
I'm sorry, but this mustache seems to scream nothing else other than, look who my dad was, get it? He had a mustache too.
Didn't the Birdman point out that sons looking exactly like their dads is totally normal?
Thank goodness Maverick awkwardly stores his sunglasses on his test pilot plaque, so we get to see what his job is. Because, ooh boy, when we get to the next scene and he's testing planes and I would totally have been like, whoa, what the is Pete Maverick Mitchell from that Top Gun movie doing testing planes and That is totally out of character.
And what about the new fans who probably don't know this? Because, yes, I know some people who saw this without seeing the first movie. This film was probably the best example I can think of a sequel standing on its own really well.
The funny thing about guard shacks on military bases is that they frown on you driving through them at full speed, but clearly he doesn't have to stop because he's Tom Cruise.
You got a really good comment that addressed this. Something about this being pretty normal, actually.
He wants our budget for his unmanned program.
He's on his way to kill the test and shut us down personally.
I know villains are gonna villain, but does Admiral Kane really need to be there in person? Like, is seeing the expressions on their faces so important that this couldn't have been done by email or f***ing Zoom?
Yeah, but if he didn't, Maverick would have still done the mission. Wait, that's exactly what happens in the movie.
Now remember, the contract threshold is Mach 10. Not 10.1, not 10.2, Mach 10. That should keep the program alive.
Will it, though? Listen, this asshole has already arbitrarily moved up your Mach 10 deadline by 2 months, so why do Hondo and Maverick think jumping through this hoop will make a damn bit of difference? Sure, it ends up working, but that's only because they're in a movie that needs to force Maverick into a teaching position he doesn't want.
But if they prove that it can be done, then they're gonna have to stick around instead of getting shut down. No, I didn't intend that to rhyme.
You know what happens to you if you go through with this.
I know what happens to everyone else if I don't.
Look, buddy, you're not saving the last blockbuster here. If you don't go through with this, I think it's fair to assume that this highly qualified flight crew working on experimental technologies would be reassigned to a different program also working on experimental technologies. But the movie is acting like their fate could be anything from scrubbing toilets to summary execution. Also, I'm pretty sure that by even going through with this, he's guaranteeing that Hondo and anyone else in a position of authority to stop him is also going to be fired for being complicit.
We know Hondo doesn't, since he's with Maverick the entire movie, so I doubt the others would get fired either.
Cool shot, but why is this security shack at the end of an active runway in the first place?
Sending something you like.
Just in time, sir.
I'm early. So are you.
But not early enough to guarantee what he came here to do, since he decided to announce his arrival ahead of time. If Kane arrives totally out of the blue, none of this happens, and he gets exactly what he wants.
But wouldn't it be a better idea to let them know that this project is over before arriving so they don't get ready for it?
This is where we've had trouble with comms, sir. It's the Earth's curvature. It's called Earth bulge.
Look, if Earth bulge didn't fly as an excuse for my unfortunate boner during my college field trip, I don't see why it should fly here either.
That was early. Jeremy says boner.
I may have slept through high school physics, but breaking speed records in my Toyota Corolla taught me that turning tends to generate friction, and friction tends to slow things down everywhere except the bedroom. So until Neil deGrasse Tyson tells me otherwise, I refuse to believe that doing a big-ass semicircle will help you break the 10th sound barrier.
You're comparing a car to this plane? And you earlier admitted that you did research with the word ensure, so why couldn't you have done the same here? I did a quick Google search, and turning scramjets does not slow it down. You just made that up.
Talk to me, Goose.
Despite being a main character, Anthony Edwards doesn't have top billing in this movie.
Are you saying Goose is the main character in a movie with Maverick's name in the title?
Put that in your Pentagon budget.
This line seems to be the only reason this character exists. Sorry, Pete. Love your work on Strange Angel. See, I Google
And yet you didn't Google the scramjet thing, so you're basically just picking and choosing what to research. That's not a good look, buddy.
Distinguished. Distinguished. Distinguished.
Distinguished.
Distinguished. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were just saying that word as a sin. If you can do that, then I can too.
One day, sooner than later, they won't need pilots at all.
Totally agree. Like the rest of us, pilots will be put to work mining for precious metals to sustain our AI overlords when the inevitable singularity occurs. Now, while Ed Harris may actually be pushing for a future with fewer human casualties, I'm more inclined to believe he's rooting for the former, and this is just a backdoor prequel to Westworld.
Jeremy agrees with the movie and then makes an arbitrary movie reference. Have I mentioned this movie is really good yet?
All you did was buy some time for those men out there.
Yeah, but time we now have to spend rebuilding that goddamn jet you just decorated the Mojave Desert with, asshole.
Jeremy literally yells at the screen cliche.
North Island, sir?
Call came in with impeccable timing.
Impeccable and cinnable.
Oh, this is one of your convenience sins. I still don't see why that's sinnable, since without a lot of things happening that are convenient, we wouldn't have this movie in the first place. It's just basic logic.
For reasons known only to the Almighty and your guardian angel.
And the writers. Don't forget the writers.
But the writers do tell us why. We later find out the Iceman specifically wanted Maverick and vouched for him, despite Cyclone's protests. This is feigning ignorance by pretending to not know that information.
You've been called back to Top Gun.
Also, we've got your standard only man for the job cliche, but this one feels especially egregious when said man just blew up a top-secret, multi-million-dollar supersonic stealth jet. I don't care how much he's needed for this other thing, his ass should be fired, and probably in prison.
Yes, but he also proved that scramjets can go up to at least Mach 10.4, something we in real life have never been able to achieve yet.
Serving a limited number of fifth-generation fighters, even a few old F-14s.
I always assumed F-14s were American-made, but if that's the case, why are these ones called Chekhov?
So you have heard of the term Chekhov's gun, despite seemingly not understanding that whenever you misuse Deus Ex Machina. That's pretty strange, but also, why are you setting the movie for setting something up for later? That's screenwriting 101.
Bradley Bradshaw, a.k.a. Rooster. I understand he used to fly with his old man.
Everyone in this room is ultimately okay with a direct conflict of interest because the mission is really about Tom Cruise dealing with his demons.
Because Rooster is one of the best pilots?
What was his call sign?
Goose, sir.
Tragic what happened.
So tragic that you couldn't remember his name, or worse still, did remember it, but felt the need to be an absolute dickhead about it and senselessly force Maverick to say it, and either option hardly feels very becoming of an admiral.
I have a third option. He simply forgot and needed Maverick to remind him. And you forget things all the time, by the way. Remember when you forgot that Katniss Everdeen killed 3 people in the first Hunger Games movie?
Hey, remember that bar from the first movie? Unfortunately, that bar wasn't available, so they had to come up with a new bar for Maverick to enter, because they know how much we loved seeing him enter the bar in the last movie. I'm sorry, new bar, but he just doesn't seem to be that into you.
At least Penny was someone briefly mentioned in the first movie, so it's not like they're pulling her out of thin air.
Yes, actually, because his options are still the same, retire or teach at Top Gun. But perhaps having that option presented to him by an old friend that he respects instead of an admiral who clearly dislikes him might have made that decision easier.
This is one of 2 scenes so far that have told us Iceman requested Maverick, and you still kept that previous sin in about you not knowing why he was called.
Let's not start this time.
They're gonna start this time.
Jeremy yells at the screen.
Well, man's a stealth pilot.
Literally. Weapon systems officer, actually.
My God, movie, yes. We know we f***ed that up in the first video. YouTube made us very well aware that Goose wasn't a pilot. Get off our back.
Oh, cool. You're actually acknowledging a mistake you made. That's rare. But why are you sending this movie for that?
I'll have 4 more on the old timer.
And hilarity will ensue when Hangman turns up to Top Gun Maverick and realizes the old-timer is his new mission instructor. And honestly, thank goodness. I don't know that this film is even recognizable as a Top Gun sequel without this specific nod to the original.
Aren't you the same guy who repeats yourself a lot? Because, yeah, this is sort of hollow coming from you.
But how do they differentiate the throw him overboard bell from the he's buying everyone a drink bell?
Because he wouldn't have been thrown out unless he couldn't pay? That seems really obvious to me, but whatever.
Also, this movie made so much freaking money that I'm worried the studios are going to take this as a sign that flashback exposition is not just okay, but also desirable. And it's not okay. This is not what the audiences are clamoring for. We want the intelligent use of practical effects when possible and attention to detail when it comes to the use of CGI. That's the lesson.
I mean, I agree with that. That's the lesson Hollywood should learn from this. But why is it a sin for a movie to flashback to a previous film just in case audiences forgot some details? Have I mentioned the first film is over 30 years old? And again, what about the people who haven't seen it and who wouldn't understand the significance of Rooster singing this exact song?
The best of the best.
There's an alternate universe where we send directors for making their characters eat toothpicks instead of apples to indicate assholery. Fortunately, in this universe, we're fine with sending both.
This is one of those running gags that you love to bring back in almost every video. And you have the gall to say this movie is repeating stuff.
That's why we call him Hangman. He'll always hang you out to dry.
There are flawed characters, and then there are characters that sound like they're going to get everyone killed, and this franchise is convinced the Navy prefers the latter.
Are you not aware that Hangman gets over that character flaw by saving Maverick and Rooster at the end? Because that's the only way this sin makes sense.
Every morning from this day forward, you will brief us on your instructional plans in writing.
Given Maverick's colorful record, does Simpson really think there's a goose's chance at a flat spin of Maverick abiding by that rule?
So what do you suggest he should do? Just stop trying?
They were designed to protect the skies above, not the canyon below.
That's because the enemy knows no one is insane enough to try and fly below them.
But why not put some Sam's down there too? You know, just on the off chance your enemy is Tom Cruise, does all his own stunts and everyone else's, even if he isn't in the movie levels of insane.
It's called underestimating your opponents. That is something I have explained to you multiple times with Tom Cruise throughout the Mission Impossible franchise that my viewers didn't even watch. No, I'm not going to stop bringing that up. Please watch those videos.
Then it's a dogfight.
Against fifth-generation fighters.
It's not the plane, sir. It's the pilot.
Yeah, but if that pilot is flying a biplane, then they're getting shot down regardless of skill, aren't they?
Judging by the end, where Maverick and Rooster tried escaping out of the enemy base with an F-14 and they almost died, I think the movie agrees with you that this sentiment isn't always true.
We're going into combat, son, on a level no living pilot's ever seen. Not even him.
I know Hangman is being a hyperbolic dickhead here, but it is very bold of him to assume Maverick hasn't played Elden Ring.
Arbitrary video game reference.
I can't be the only one that knows that Maverick flew with his old man.
That's enough.
Or that Maverick was flying when his old man...
I really don't see why the movie thought it needed this detective Hangman figures out Maverick and Rooster's past C-plot. What is Hangman getting out of being a dick here? Is he really going to feel like the bigger man for getting Rooster kicked off the mission?
He's not entirely being a bully here. Hangman is pointing out that Rooster has a complicated relationship with Maverick, and that could affect how Rooster does the mission. It clearly has been too, considering the obvious rivalry between them the Hangman has noticed.
Also, how is this even a secret? All these motherfuckers attended Top Gun, so how is a pilot dying in the 80s not the most common legend in circulation? Especially when there's a fucking photo in the lobby of one of the legends.
Even if they did hear of Goose, I doubt they know that Rooster is his son. But also, you just called Goose a pilot again. Didn't you just demonstrate earlier that you know he wasn't that?
You're all dismissed.
Never mind that I barely started this briefing on the extremely dangerous and complex mission that we have precious few days to prepare for. Go get some rest or play football or some shit so that I don't have to deal with any actual conflict resolution.
This happens because Maverick is feeling like he's failing Rooster and wants to try and clear his head. This is a very human thing to do.
My God, this photo again? This photo is to Top Gun Maverick what Luke's fucking lightsaber is to Star Wars The Force Awakens.
An object with a ton of mystery around it that has no explanation for why it's here? Also, seriously, why was that lightsaber calling out to Rey? We never got an answer for that.
And if I don't send him, he'll never forgive me.
Yeah, Rooster will be pissed off either way, but you could totally find a legitimate reason for not sending him. Only 6 out of the 12 pilots go on the mission, and the fact that it's being taught by Maverick probably should have been enough to exclude Rooster from being selected in the first damn place.
But Rooster will still be mad about it. Didn't you just say that at the beginning? Also, that second point doesn't have anything to do with the first point, and it's something you already mentioned earlier. Also, that weird delivery of the word exclude.
This touch football scene is a perfect callback to the first movie and even makes sense in a wider narrative. But we just had to sin removal, so I guess I'll have to sin that the good people at Top Gun are still wearing fucking jeans while playing beach sports.
Jeremy sends something he likes, cliche.
We waited 36 years to find out what going ballistic with Penny Benjamin actually meant, and after seeing it, I'm pretty sure Mrs. Goose wasn't using that word correctly.
There's another contradiction, being that you earlier implied that Penny came out of nowhere, but then show here that you know she was briefly mentioned.
And you and Amelia, you seem...
Scene has no chance against this 5th generation skip.
I really should come up with a cliche that calls out this weird tendency to skip important character building scenes.
I thought you were staying at Karen's tonight.
Movie has time for this Maverick and Penny get caught as if they're naughty teenagers, so Maverick has to escape out of the window nonsense.
Hey, I still remember the audience laughing when Amelia saw Maverick in my theater, so I think we're all okay with the movie having time for this.
The first pair will breach the reactor by dropping a laser-guided bomb on an exposed ventilation hatch. This will create an opening for the second pair. That's miracle number 1.
But wouldn't the chances of achieving said miracle be increased by sending more planes? From the start, Mav has said this mission needs 4 planes consisting of 2 teams of 2. But what's the harm in sending 3 teams of 2 for redundancy? Hell, send in all 12 pilots and triple your chances of a direct hit. Okay, they may be trying to limit the potential loss of life, and don't check my mouth on this one, but I feel like an illegal uranium enrichment facility will put significantly more lives on the line.
Very similar to a sin I had in my Rogue Nation video. This is done because it's more cinematic, and also it works anyway, so why put in this suggestion?
A steep climb at that speed, you're pulling at least 8 Gs.
9 minimum.
Yeah, but 9 Gs is also covered by at least 8 Gs, which is exactly what he said. God, nitpickers, am I right?
Right. And did you not hear him say minimum?
Also, do you know who doesn't have to worry about excessive G-forces ripping the skin from their skulls? Drones!
Do you really think they'd have time to do that before the uranium becomes operational?
Sir, is this even achievable?
The answer to that question will come down to the pilot in the box.
Look, Teach, at this stage, we're all fully aware that it takes spunk, gumption, and a plethora of other shit that can't be taught to be a great pilot. But on this occasion, I think Phoenix's query is more related to whether the fundamentals of goddamn physics and aerodynamics themselves are being violated with this stunt, not how big her pilot balls need to be.
Isn't that exactly what Maverick is saying here?
You think up there, you're dead. Believe me.
My dad believed in you.
Kids.
Sinning this scene by making a joke that I don't think makes sense.
Time to target is now 4 minutes.
Simpson will now essentially change everything about the mission to make it more achievable, but goddamn, I find it hard to believe that he doesn't see how dumb that is.
Cyclone isn't as concerned with getting these pilots home as Maverick is, so that's why he doesn't see a problem with this plan.
Bullseye, holy sh!
Hoorah! Go Maverick! And other celebratory proclamations. But why didn't he do this 2 fucking weeks ago? Evidently half the battle was convincing everyone that the run can be done the way he's planned it. So why didn't he just ace it to begin with and give them all at least the notion that it's within their grasp?
Because he thought maybe they could do it? The only reason he's doing this now is to save the pilots' lives and prove that Cyclone's plan isn't the only option.
Mach 10? 10 G's? 10 Commandments? Excitement? What's it all mean?
G-force, a measurement of acceleration specifically expressed as a multiple of the Earth's gravitational acceleration. Didn't you say you Google stuff?
Once your F-18 strike team crosses the border, Tomahawk missiles from the USS Leyte Gulf will launch a synchronized strike on the enemy's airfield here.
Plan is to blow up the fucking airfield? Does Maverick know this? When he first briefs everyone about the mission, he says,
Time to target, 2.5 minutes. That's because 5th-generation fighters wait at an airbase nearby.
But if the plan is to blow them up before the mission even begins, why are they even a factor? Okay, they still have to contend with any planes that are in the air, but there's no way of knowing where they're going to be until the mission starts, right?
You just admitted that they still have to deal with jets coming after them, so Maverick's point still stands.
The moment those Tomahawks hit, the enemy will know you're coming. Your time to target will be 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
If Tomahawks are the thing that alerts the enemy and triggers the 2.5-minute countdown, why not send them later? Or maybe don't send the fucking Tomahawks at all. If Mav and team are flying below the radar, how would the enemy even know they're coming? No one's mentioned a fucking tripwire set up at the entrance of the canyon.
Why shoot an airfield and prevent more planes from taking off? We know the missiles the enemy do have don't entirely work since most of the squad gets away. So what if they do that and 5th-generation fighters come after them? They're doing this just to be safe.
Daggers, assume attack formation.
Star Wars, a new Maverick.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Guys, we're falling behind. We really gotta move.
Rooster is hesitant here and falls behind, which makes sense based on what we know about him so far and his tendency to play it safe. What doesn't make sense is that he suddenly decides to believe in Maverick based solely on the pity trust that landed him in a seat on this mission. He could still get you killed, Rooster.
Or how about Maverick proving that this mission can be done? Maybe that was a part of Rooster changing his mind about him.
Hey, Rooster to the rescue. But does anyone follow goddamn orders in this movie?
Wow, I'm genuinely surprised you didn't label this as Rooster Ex Machina. As for your point, all the people back on the boat that gave Cyclones orders.
Yeah, I'm good. You all right?
This whole bit is hilarious, but considering the tone of the movie leading up to this, the sudden behind the enemy's whose line is it anyway comedy routine feels a bit out of left field, and I'm not sure who's on first.
Dude, come on. Sinning may be the funniest scene in the movie?
What the hell were you even thinking?
You told me not to think.
Rooster would be Top Gun at CinemaSins.
What did I just say?
You're not serious.
Joseph Kosinski's response to reading the writer's outline for this escape plan somehow makes it into the script.
Nah, he probably figured, oh yeah, this is Tom Cruise. It's gotta have something insanely ridiculous happening that could even be labeled as an impossible mission. Yep, see what I did there?
You've got to be shitting me.
Is what we all said when we saw this F-14 and realized the whole movie had been leading up to Rooster riding backseat with Maverick. The whole contrived mess of an impossible mission was designed to fail, because if it succeeded, we wouldn't get this moment. Don't get me wrong, I love this moment for what it is, but I also now hate it because of how we got here. And we all know that a tie goes to the center.
Did you just steal my pun? Also, going back to the beginning, just because it's all convenient doesn't make it impossible, it just makes it unlikely.
We don't even know if that bag of ass can fly.
Joseph Kosinski's response to someone telling him Tom Cruise would do all his own stunts also makes it into the script.
The first joke was just fine, but this one doesn't make sense. What does Tom Cruise doing his own stunts have to do with this F-14 being able to fly?
Then it's a dogfight.
An F-14 against 5th-gen fighters?
It's not the plane, it's the pilot.
I hate to belabor a point, except I don't. So it's also absolutely the fucking plane. I very much doubt you'd be saying that if you were up there in a damn Boeing 737-200.
And like I said earlier, this F-14 doesn't even get them to safety since Hangman had to save them. So the movie is aware this isn't entirely accurate.
Come on, Mav. Don't think. Just do.
And behold, the student became the master, completing the circle of life and dooming them both to an existence of well-meaning but confused platitudes, misguided cliches, and discount yodeling.
What? What are you talking about?
Also, instead of taking a few seconds to tell Rooster what his immediate plan is, Maverick just lurches into action and nearly snaps Rooster's neck. Not everything has to be at your tempo, Mav.
You're aware that Rooster literally said, don't think, right?
We gotta get low. The terrain will confuse his targeting system.
Based on what? You were flummoxed by this maneuver a few seconds ago, and now you're a f***ing expert on 5th-generation targeting systems? Goddamn movie's got me saying it now. 5 extra 5th-generational sins.
Padding the sin count. Also, this comment mentioned that this is 100% realistic for pretty much every plane, so of course Maverick knows this.
I know this is perfectly within character, but it's still fucking dumb that Maverick thinks it's fine to buzz the fucking aircraft carrier after just surviving what he and Rooster have been through.
Nope, you said it's in character, so this ain't a sin.
Please don't tell me we lost an engine.
All right, I won't tell you that.
Hey, Bill, remember in the first film when Kruger got all shaken up and then had that sketchy carrier landing? Yeah, it was a super powerful moment. Exactly, so I was thinking, would we do something goofy instead and rip off the end of Hot Shots? Damn it, Bill, you're a genius.
Arbitrary movie reference.
And of course, all is well and everything is forgiven because as long as the most recent thing you did is a success, who gives a shit about the experimental jet you totaled, the F-18 that you stole and is no longer airworthy, or anything else you did wrong?
And all of that wrong led to them beating another country and potentially stopping a war. So yeah, I'd say all of his sins are forgiven.
Thank you for saving my life.
That's what my dad would have done.
That would have been difficult, with him being a Rio and not an actual pilot.
Jeremy sends this line. That's worth a few extra.
Movie does not contain a Merlin or a Berlin.
Right, it doesn't have a Merlin. For a guy who calls out sins for a living, you just committed one by lying about that. But hey, it's not like there are multiple YouTube channels to call you out on this. That would be bad for you, right?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your savior speaking. Please fasten your seatbelts, return your tray tables to their locked and upright positions, and prepare for landing.